Hi there, folks. Are you studying for your FAA Part 107 exam and struggling with making sense of the airspace sectional maps and how the information relates to UASs specifically? This is such a small part of the test, but one I feel that I spent a very large percentage of my study time trying to master. I've posted a longer video on how I passed that test using only free-ish resources, but I thought a couple of those resources deserved a second closer look. So if you're looking for some help on how to translate the sectional maps and temporary flight restrictions into on-the-ground reality, then stick around, because I may have just the tool you need to get you on the way to passing the sectional portion of your FAA Part 107 exam.
Take me to the place where I come from, the only place where I really belong. Take me 'cause this voyage seems so long. Back to you. Ooh.
Thanks for sticking around. Today we're going to talk about how to get ground truth on just where you can and cannot fly your drone, updated in real time to take into account just published temporary flight restrictions and special areas. Navigating the FAA website can be tricky, and unfortunately, the UAS Facility Map website is not an easy-to-type URL, so here's how to find it if you don't have the link that I've included below. Starting with a Google search for UAS Facility Maps, to there, to the maps, which then brings up the UAS Facility Map. So let's take a look at an airport that I'm familiar with. We start with KRDU. Insert a K in front of your airport that you're interested in seeing. And then I'm zooming out using the mouse wheel. And what we can see is that Raleigh-Durham International is a Class C airport with some Class E3 tails or flaps around of it. Even though this tool looks like it's an aid to pilots, in reality, this tool is intended to be an aid to the LANC approvers who are looking to approve LANC requests. For example, if you as a pilot file a LANC request and say, I want to fly in this grid under 300 feet, when your request goes in, the ATC or FAA approver looks at it and then looks at this map and says, okay, anything under 400 feet is close to automatically get approved. It's not automatically approved, but it's close to it, right? It means that they don't have to go out and do a whole bunch of research. Now, if you file a LANC request to fly in this grid at 500 feet, now you are in the region of taking days, weeks, possibly months to get approval because they have to go do a bunch of studies. Essentially, around airports, they have figured out where it's safe based on flight patterns and things like that, that there's sufficient separation between manned aircraft and UASs to make the approval process a little faster and a little easier. Again, it's not automatic, but it is pretty streamlined. So if this tool is not meant for pilots, but rather LANC approvers, why do I think that this is such a great study aid? Well, let me show you. So if I come to the layers and I pick Class E5 airspace with a limit of 700 feet above ground level, right? And I now come in to Class E3 and click on this, I can see that Class E3 is defined from the surface to just under 10,000 feet, which makes sense, but there's no UAS restriction, right? This is a Class E3 airspace, and we know that there are no UAS restrictions in Class E3, only Class E2 or in B, C, or D, right? Whereas if I come here, I see that this is Class C airspace, which is UAS restrictions, and it specifically calls out that the ceiling of this particular restriction is 400 feet. So this helps with looking at sectional maps and where the restrictions are, and helps understand especially the Class E airspaces that people seem to have a lot of problems with. So let's go take a look at a couple other airports, maybe a little smaller ones. So I'm going to scroll out and I'm going to move to the east. And if we take a look at this area, here is a Class E surface surrounded by a regular Class E ring. And we see that inside at the airport. This is Rocky Mount Wilson Regional Airport. Right, the ceiling of the restriction starts at 0 feet because it's a surface mount, or it's a surface Class E. But if I come outside this, then I click in the regular Class E region, and all of a sudden I say, oh, look, it's 700 feet. So this helped me understand how the restrictions worked outside the surface ring, but within the regular Class E airspace. So let's keep moving east. I'm going to zoom out and let's go take a look at some of these special use areas. And okay, here's a nice red region. And that is a national security UAS flight restriction around Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point. And we see that the airspace is technically Class G, which is helpful for training and understanding where Class G is. But this particular national security UAS flight restriction goes from the surface to 400 feet above ground level. I'm going to take a look at my layers here and make sure I've got, oh, I need to turn on special use. Okay, now if I click into this special use region, this is special use airspace. It's restricted R5306A. And what's interesting is that in these special use airspaces, instead of having the upper flight limit specified in feet, it's actually specified in flight levels, which is the add 2 zeros to it. So flight level 180 is actually 18,000 feet, and the lower limit is 0. Again, these are restricted areas with all the normal, you need to call and get permission before you fly in here. But what I thought was interesting was they specified the upper limit in flight levels. Now, if I come out to warning area, or 110. Here's with W110. Again, flight level 23,000 feet or flight level 230, lower limit of 0. So depending on the layers that you choose, you can see different parts of the map. And you may need to play around with it a little bit to make sure that you're getting the right information, because if you, for example, right, if I click off special use airspace, then the areas that I was just clicking in are no longer active to give you that information. Well, there's a lot more that you can do with this map. I have played around looking at the flight regions around LAX or Boston or Chicago, and the sectional maps started making a lot more sense to me after I used this tool to poke in. I hope that you think it's useful and that it will help you with your own studies. If you like the video and appreciate it, please go ahead and hit the like button and the subscribe. We'd obviously really appreciate it. And until next time, good luck studying and go take that test.